Welcome back, guys. I hope that break was not too long. Quick little 3 minutes there. My name is Maeve O'Rourke. I am joined with Joe Brown. This is the Orlando Regional Championships top cut. And even though you guys may be saying world champ difference in chat, we have two more world championships, two more world champions coming up right now.
Yeah, I guess you're correct by default, as Toler Webb versus James Evans, two former senior division world champions. So a long time ago, but these trainers are still at the top of their games. 2012 for Toler and 2018 for James Evans. And Toler had, like, probably, I would argue, the moment of the day yesterday with that freeze dry freeze. I
mean, it was the moment of the day for us, probably not for James Beck. Either way, though, again, super exciting. It's one of those things where you're like, I have to play to my out. My out is this 10% chance, but if I get it, I win the game. I stay undefeated. I get to move forward. And that happened for Toler. And I mean, if you accept that bad luck will come to you, you can also accept that good luck will come to you. And I think that, you know, really worked out for Toler. So I think I'm super excited to see him in this matchup. This also guarantees that we will have a World Championship face-off in the next round, as well as the winner of this match will be facing Wolf.
Yeah, that's a good point. So you're going to have a world champion top 4 matchup no matter what, which is pretty cool. I also know Carson Confer was in top 8, still not sure what his progress is at this point, but that's another potential threat for one of these other world champions to have to face down when the bracket gets a little bit smaller there. But I'm excited, obviously, one, because James is a Jersey boy, but because he also has some really cool Pokemon like Great Tusk, which has picked up in a lot of usage this weekend here in Orlando. Something
I want to mention, I made the hot take yesterday that there would be no Golden Go in top 4. There is none on Wolf's team. There are none in this matchup. I'm 2 out of 4 right now. I'm 2 out of 4. So there's a chance. There is a chance that I could be right. I know everyone was like a little iffy on my hot take there, but I was feeling pretty confident. So I think there's a good chance for me here, Joe.
I had faith in you.
Thank you so much.
Somebody had to, you know?
One of the many people back here has to believe in me, right? You have to imagine. Either way.
Well, I do want to say, as the players are getting set on stage here, another note, just looking quickly at James's team, and we can see his accomplishments as a player, as the former 2018 Senior Division World Champion, as well as NAIC last summer, EUIC in the championship his senior year as well, and then getting top 8 just last month in San Diego. The pivot on the difference on his Great Tusk is he actually has Substitute instead of Earthquake, and it makes a lot of sense because outside of Terra-Flying Tyranitar, there are no ground immunities except for Dragonite, but he'll be normal type a lot of the time, whatever. So you don't have safe Earthquake teammates, let's just say. So there's no reason to run Earthquake, and if you can get a Substitute, that actually helps you out in the mirror matchup against the opposing Pokemon a lot more safely.
Yeah, absolutely, right? And it's a little bit of an interesting call, and that's something that Open Team Sheet does allow at least for Toler to see and for Toler to pay attention to. This would have been something that, you know, had this been revealed on stream in really any year prior, we would have been like, he's got Substitute, and it would have been a really interesting call to make. But now Toler knows and can expect it, and whether that means that he double targets into that Pokemon on a turn he thinks that there will be a Substitute to try and break it quickly and really just force James to have lost a quarter of his HP for nothing without any offensive pressure in return, is something that I think Toler is going to have to kind of play around, because these Great Tusks put out so much offensive pressure. You cannot ignore them when they sit on the field unless you're running a Flying Ghost type or something. So either way, right, we're not seeing a ton of things that are going to really ignore that.
Yeah, and then if you saw on Toler's side, as we see his team and his prior accomplishments from the 2012 Senior World Champion and then 2015 U.S. National Champion. And one thing that's really interesting on his side is the Flutter Mane is Terra Steel, which is not that great of a Terra typing to use into an opposing Great Tusk with the access to both Close Combat and Headlong Rush. Now, yes, you can hit it super effectively as a Fairy type, since Great Tusk is fighting and ground. However, if we've seen so many times with Great Tusk on the broadcast this weekend, it does opt for a Terra Ground, not only for the stronger same type attack bonus attacks there to do more damage, but more importantly to get rid of that Fairy weakness.
Yeah, and I mean, Fluttermane is what? It was the second most popular Pokemon this weekend behind Iron Hands, so it's something that when you're building, you have to be mindful of. And I think as well, right, you say that Terra Steel, it looks so nice going into something like that Sylveon, but that Sylveon's Terra Fire, so it does give you a little bit of, wiggle room, I think, there, but even Terra Fire doesn't feel great because you're still against a Great Tusk. Like, there's a lot of, I think, nuance in how these trainers are going to have to lead, because you have to, I think, pick correctly, especially with things like Gothitelle on the field that may force you to be stuck in a lead if you don't like your lead and you can't switch out.
Yeah, and I'm just looking at James's side here. It's always interesting the plushie mind games that players bring. You know what I mean?
I'm big on the plushie mind games.
And so James has, I know he's big on plushies in general, but he has the Dragonite just chilling right there, and of course having Dragonite on the team, maybe getting a little bit of a mental boost there by having his buddy there. But like, you know, does he commit with the Skiploom or
He's
whatever?
got that to every tournament. It is emotional commitment. That Skiploom has been more places than I have ever been in my entire life. That
Skiploom has earned more championship points than I ever will in my life.
It has a lot of passport stamps that I do not have, for sure, just with the amount that James has been able to travel because of Pokemon. So, you know, I think that Skiploom is definitely out there. Toler bringing the Gothitelle as well. That is his plush mind game. That's his, I'm going to bring this and you can't switch out, and I'm going to put it on the table so that you can't escape and have to play me.
It is, yeah. Dude, could you imagine if like James tried to take his plush off and Toler's like, no, Gothitelle plush is on the table, sir.
If you try and forfeit the game, but it won't let you forfeit because the Gothitelle is there, either way.
But back to the game as they are loading into it here to start team preview. I think it is very cool that both of these trainers have Gothitelle and Tyranitar. The Tyranitar specifically, we have not seen much out of. I think a lot of people, most people's opinions have been that Rain and Sun are more viable weather types here in these early days in Scarlet and Violet. So to actually have a Sand Setter, the only like downside of Terra flying on Tyranitar, yes, you resist the fighting and all, you know, you're now immune to ground, but you then don't keep the Sandstream boost to your special defense because you're no longer a rock type. So it's actually really important to value when it's most important to, or the best time to terrestrialize with Tyranitar. It's not necessarily right away on turn 1 every time, because you might need to tank a special attack like a Hydro Pump from James's Iron Bundle or Moonblast or something like that, and you need that special defense boost, and then you can terrestrialize later. Yeah,
and especially, you know, with these Pokemon, seeing the Talonflame and the Fluttermane, you may want to be tanking some special attacks. However, it is Dragonite and Sylveon on the opposite side, so a really interesting team that has double target options.
Yeah, and as you were mentioning, it is Terra Steel Fluttermane versus Terra Fire Sylveon, so it's not necessarily a great position for Fluttermane if this got into a Terra battle. The immediate benefit on Toler's end is Talonflame at full HP does have access to its Gale Wings priority boosted Tailwind. Some of the things we've actually seen this weekend as a way to secure that, because Dragonite has extreme speed, it can break its full HP, is Ghost Terra Talonflame, so that it is now immune to normal attacks. You keep that full HP and you keep your priority, but it's a flying Terra Dragonite instead of the more common normal.
Yeah, this flying Terra is going to boost the power of something like a flying Terra Blast. Brave Bird, instead, from this Talonflame, not opting for something like the Tailwind into that Sylveon, does good amount of damage, over half of its HP. The Moonblast as well, the double target, you get rid of that Sylveon, you do not take that Hyper Voice damage, don't let it set up something like that Throat Spray. And this Dragonite moving last goes for this Terra Blast here, is going to be that flying type, is still going to do a great amount of damage into this Fluttermane. It's enough for the one-hit knockout, so you must have been banking on making a trade, and I think getting that Fluttermane out of the way is huge.
Dragonite getting that additional boost to its same type attack bonus as a flying type means that the Terra Blast does even more damage. It is kind of funny seeing a Pokemon that is already originally a flying type use the Terra Blast to have it. It's like kind of the similar issue that Gyarados has, is it doesn't really have a great flying attack. You'll see this with some Pokemon, so I think that was a fair play from both sides there. Toler disregarding Dragonite as the threat on that turn and deciding Sylveon is more of a problem for whatever I have in the back, which is understandable since it is a Tyranitar who would be weak to those fairy attacks. And then James saying, if I can get rid of Fluttermane with a one-hit KO, then I can deal with the rest of his team later.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this Gothitelle too, having the opportunity to go for something like a taunt into that Talonflame would be a great way to stop something like a Will-O-Wisp if that's on that, if that's kind of there and in the way and able to maybe mitigate the damage that this Dragonite can put out, right? And I think it also could stop the Tailwind. This Tyranitar, though, is looking pretty comfortable in front of the Gothitelle.
Yeah, and you don't really have to worry too much because you see on the other side that there is no fighting attack or anything like that that you'd have to worry about on Tyranitar, so there's not necessarily an imminent threat that you would need to Flying Terra this turn. Dragonite does have access to Dragon Dance for James, so you can try to get even stronger, but you are facing the great, like, OG rock type in T-Tar as a flying type.
Yeah, Tyranitar gets faked out. The Talonflame goes for a taunt here, not wanting a Dragon Dance. This Dragonite also is holding the Lumberry too, so it would actually be okay taking a Will-O-Wisp. No worries on that taunt though, as it goes for that flying type Terra Blast into this Talonflame. Is not enough to get the knockout though. It gets it so close, and thanks to that fake out going into the Tyranitar, you do not have enough, but this Talonflame's going to go down anyway thanks to that Sandstorm set up by its partner.
No, Tyranitar did Talonflame dirty there. He flinched and then knocked out his own teammate. That is obviously unfortunate. Toler down to his final two Pokemon. The Fluttermane and Talonflame have been knocked out, so it is just Tyranitar and Great Tusk. This could be that moment if you wanted to go to the flying type, so you had a teammate you could Earthquake next to. However, you're not hitting the Dragonite, and it actually might be better to use Terra on Great Tusk to get rid of that fighting typing, since Dragonite is the flying type right now with access to Terra Blast and a super effective hit.
I think it's Rock Slide time if you're Tyranitar, right? You do have the opportunity to go for those super effective Rock Slides. Close combat though into the Dragonite though from that Great Tusk. No Terastallization. You're already taking that defense and special defense drop. Not doing as much damage as you may have liked. Also showing that you're going to lose a little HP thanks to the Life Orb. Terra Blast from this Dragonite, a flying type move once again into this Tyranitar. Actually does a little bit more damage than I expected there, Joe. Tyranitar going for the Rock Slide though into these Pokemon. It's enough to knock that Dragonite out. You must be fishing for something like a flinch onto this Gothitelle before it could maybe set up a move like Trick Room, or could do something pretty frustrating to try and deal with the Pokemon on your side. But instead it's going to be that Psychic into that fighting type Great Tusk that's paired with that ground typing. It's enough for that knockout, Joe. I think that going for that Terra would have been really helpful.
Yeah, because then you're just a ground type, and I guess it can be somewhat unintuitive to turn into a ground type to click a fighting attack, excuse me. So that might be why Toler decided not to do that. But now with a 2-1 lead, and then he's either weak to Hydro Pump, or if he becomes a flying type, he would be weak to the Freeze Dry there. James is in a really strong spot. I thought that turn started out well for Toler. I give him credit that he needed that extra damage because he wasn't confident that Tyranitar's Rock Slide would be enough for the KO, but by not Terastallizing, it put him in a really bad spot.
Look at this Sandstream, like you said, Joe. It does help tank that heat from the Hydro Pump there. Critical hit on the Gothitelle with this Rock Slide. Huge damage onto that Iron Bundle with the Rock Slide as well. Gothitelle is going to eat its berry. At this point, you are looking for those flinches. That Wiki Berry does heal up a lot of damage. You get the flinch as well. Gothitelle not able to help out its partner Pokemon here, and they're going to be taking some chip damage.
Yeah, it's actually getting pretty close. The only attack Gothitelle has is Psychic, which cannot hit Tyranitar. So this is really up to Iron Bundle. Obviously, a Ice attack, which is 100% accurate, would be not as strong. So you might want to go for the the Hydro Pump, which would be super effective into Tyranitar, but that can miss.
Yeah, another Rock Slide from this Tyranitar. It will go into that Protect that the Iron Bundle just launched right there to try and keep itself safe. Gothitelle avoids, though. It, again, cannot do much here. It's going for this Psychic, assuming that this Tyranitar is going to go for the Terastallization. Again, some more chip damage as well. This Iron Bundle probably has... It's probably going to be fine because the Sandstorm isn't going to last all that much longer. Yeah, the Gothitelle is really not the issue right now. Toler understands he cannot be targeted. It all comes down to 85% accuracy. Yeah, that 85% accuracy is enough right there. That Hydro Pump connects into the Tyranitar. That is going to be enough for that win. Toler was not able to get that last Pokemon RNG that he was able to have in that match yesterday on stream. However, that's only game one. There is still lots of Pokemon left to be played, moving these players into the next game. That was really fun to see some different strategies. A flying Dragonite with Terra Blast. Tyranitar, our first Tyranitar appearance of the weekend from Toler. Even when he won his previous set against James Beck, he did not
bring that in the set. And James is very nervous, very excited after clutching that one out. I really wonder what would have changed in that matchup if Great Tusk decided with Toler. Toler decided to use its Terra typing there, so it was no longer weak to Psychic. But, you know, maybe that's just an adjustment that Toler can make going into game 2. I believe, as you know, in general, the Flutter Mane got knocked out right away on turn 1, right? The Great Tusk got knocked out after getting one attack in as well. So if Toler can find some different avenues to keeping his Pokemon around for even just a second crucial turn on something as valuable as Flutter Mane could be huge.
I think getting rid of the Sylveon, though, turn 1 was really huge for Toler, because I think that Sylveon would have put on a lot of pressure if it was able to get those Hyper Voices. It's holding that Throat Spray, so it would have gotten the boost after using one Hyper Voice, and that Pixelate ability does make it that Fairy typing, which is super effective onto both the Great Tusk and the Tyranitar, which can be pretty tough to deal with as well.
Yeah, and you know, looking at the sheets again here for Toler, it is Ground Terra with the Life Orb, so you know Great Tusk is going to be is actually pretty strong. Even that close combat, which was into a resisted flying type there in Dragonite, was still enough damage to put it in range of Tyranitar's Rock Slide. So does Toler want to go run back the same strategy where it was mostly effective, or maybe you can try to lead Tyranitar instead of saving it for the late game when it comes out a little bit too late?
I mean, if you lead it right, then you're still putting yourself at risk of a possible Sylveon lead, which is something you may have to just kind of counter with, whether that be going for that Steel Flutter Mane possibly in that first game, but then you don't get the terrestrialization onto that Iron Tusk, Great Tusk. So it becomes this weird kind of, what's my most optimal turn 1 that's going to put me in a position that I can allow the Pokemon in my back to do what I need them to do. It looks like Flutter Mane Gothitelle, though. Gothitelle coming out right now. Dragonite Gothitelle as well. Nobody is moving this turn.
Uh-oh, everybody get seated. Put your seatbelts on, because we're going to be here. You can't switch out. You know they are not ghost types, so ghost types would be able to get around the shadow tag. But instead, these Pokemon are locked in, as if the Dragonite can avoid the taunt, he can try to go for Dragon Dances, but of course, Toler is not going to let that happen for free. As we even saw last game, he decided to taunt the Dragonite slot to stop that. So there is access to Fake Out, and whenever you see Pokemon that is the same Pokemon, they both have Fake Out, you wonder how the speed training went on to who would win that speed tie.
Yeah, the Flutter Mane does have the opportunity to switch out here thanks to its Ghost typing with this Shadow Tag, and it did take this Terra Blast, this flying type Terra Blast from Dragonite, which was enough to get that knockout on game 1. Looks like the Gothitelle, though, on Toler's side is faster, does get the Fake Out onto the Dragonite. It then takes a Fake Out in return from James's, but Dazzling Gleam not doing a bunch of damage, but this Dragonite flinching is absolutely huge.
I would have thought the Shadow Ball into Gothitelle on that turn instead of the Dazzling Gleam, because if you have the confidence that your Gothitelle is going to win the speed tie and get the Fake Out, Dragonite's not going to be getting an attack off on this turn anyway, and thanks to its flying Terra typing, it loses that Dragon typing, loses that weakness to Fairy. So could have been a lot stronger for Toler if that target went into the other slot, but still Dragonite is now at roughly half health, and eventually, like, a Moonblast is very strong into it.
Yeah, that Moonblast is absolutely enough to knock out that Dragonite. You have gotten rid of this big threat early in the game, and it has not been a trade yet. You have not taken a Pokemon at the cost of your own. Taunt from this Gothitelle into the opposing Gothitelle is going to lock that Gothitelle into only using Psychic, as its other moves, Fake Out, Taunt, and Trick Room, can't really get used. That Gothitelle's Taunt, though, went second, so these Pokemon are speed tying. We're seeing that right now.
Yep, they went back and forth, so nothing can be certain. You do not mind clicking Psychic into the Great Tusk as a fighting and a ground type that is super effective into that fighting part of it. And you know, because Dragonite used the Terrestrialization already, Great Tusk is going to have to stick around with that weakness. It can't switch out, and it's facing a Fairy and a Psychic type with that with that fighting is very difficult. We did mention in Team Preview, Great Tusk on James's end has access to Substitute. However, I'm not sure in which situation he'd be able to set it up and keep the Substitute on the field.
something that's really interesting here, right, is the Gothitelle on the opposite side of the field cannot click Trick Room. This Great Tusk is slower than the Pokemon on the opposite side of the field, possibly. So you could click Trick Room yourself, set up this Trick Room, but instead you're bringing in your fast Pokemon in Iron Bundle. Iron Bundle, like we said, it's got Covert Cloak, so if you have that Fake Out opportunity, you're not going to be able to get that Fake Out off onto the Iron Bundle. Actually, sorry, I'm flip-flopping my Iron Bundles here. These teams are, you know, pretty close. Instead, this is that Quark Drive for the speed boost. Would not love being in Trick Room. A Protect, though, from that Great Tusk this turn. The Flutter Mane going for the Shadow Ball, targets down into what was that Gothitelle. Some super effective damage there. Critical hit as well. That is enough to get that knockout onto the Iron Bundle, meaning you have now gotten rid of a huge threat to your own Great Tusk in the back, or even your own Tyranitar, and any attack into that Great Tusk is not going to happen thanks to that Protect.
Yeah, that crit with the one-hit KO is really huge because with that booster energy, ensuring that Iron Bundle is faster than the other side, try to go for Icy Wind or whatever attacks you want. However, now at this point where you have Great Tusk still facing down these super effective threats on its side, it's not looking as strong for James in this match, and the double Gothitelle lead has really worked out for Toler here.
Yeah, another Fake Out thanks to this Gothitelle switching back into the Gothitelle that's taunted on the other side. Moonblast is enough for the knockout into this Great Tusk from that Flutter Mane. So you have easily, this Flutter Mane has taken every single knockout, I think, if I'm not mistaken, and Toler has not shown any Pokemon in the back. Gothitelle's taunt finally ends. You could try and go for the taunt speed tie once more and lock that Pokemon into Psychic. Shadow Ball, though, from this Flutter Mane is probably going to be plenty enough here to get the rest of that damage. Gothitelle gets knocked out. That is a very quick 4-0 from Toler onto James Evans.
That is a dominant comeback of a game 2 after how back and forth of a nail-biter game 1 was between Toler and James, to just completely come out on top like that, never even revealing. Usually we're like, oh, you keep your 4th Pokemon information revealed, or, you know, that's safe. Keep that information safe. Toler didn't even show off his 3rd Pokemon in that match, so all James got to see was the Gothitelle and Flutter Mane adjustment, and so now you kind of have to see on Toler's side, or excuse me, if you are James, when you're looking at those threats, is the Flying Dragonite that valuable against most of Toler's team? Aside from the Great Tusk, who would be weak to it, it's not that imperative. It did get the huge knockout onto Flutter Mane in game 1, but can there be an adjustment on James's strategy here in game 3?
The biggest problem right now, Joe, is that Fake Out speed tie in turn 1. Having both Gothitelles on the opposite side of the field, the reason Toler got off on such a strong foot is that he was able to Fake Out that Terra Blast from the Dragonite, which we saw was that one-hit KO in game 1, in turn 1. And so now the fact of the matter is that if you win that speed tie, you're set up for probably the next several turns. If you don't win it, you're down a Flutter Mane, and then you have to kind of work your way back. Unless, you know, you go for the Terrassalization there, which I don't know if that's really the move that you'd want to make, because that Flutter Mane was doing just fine on its own, and I think you may be better off to save that for something like a big hitter like the Great Tusk.
Now, do you think, you know, I'm sitting here, like, I don't think Talonflame was brought in that last game. I'm trying to think on James's perspective. If he's not leading Talonflame, it's likely not, you know, its 4th Pokemon in the back. It seems like Tyranitar was valuable enough. Like, if I had to wager, it would have been Tyranitar and Great Tusk.
That was my thought, too.
In my thought there. So do you kind of rule Talonflame out and just go all in on this Gothitelle lead, trying to find your best answer? One of those would be your Tyranitar, who is a dark type that can hit it, but you have to worry about the Flutter Mane on the other side. If that is the Toler leads Flutter Mane Gothitelle yet again, you need to have a proper answer for it this time.
Yeah, and you can get faked out, right? This Tyranitar, it is holding the Assault Vest. It is not carrying Protect. It's a very easy turn 1 to click Fake Out into it, you know, unless you even want to go into something. Yeah, Fake Out Moonblast as well. I think that's Sylveon as well, if I'm not mistaken, is also a, no, it's Throat Spray, so it does have Protect. So that's not exactly your safest option here. This Sylveon in the lead with the Tyranitar is going off against this Flutter Mane and Gothitelle in this game 3. You have this Sandstream set up instead of in front of 2 big special attackers.
That is the adjustment James needed, calling Toler to lead the same here in Flutter Mane and Gothitelle. And yeah, you might not be able to one-hit Gothitelle, but you can brute force through it. If you want to fake out Tyranitar, you are letting Sylveon get its Throat Spray active by clicking Hyper Voice, and even though Gothitelle is incredibly bulky, especially on its special defense side, it is not really going to be able to take those boosted Hyper Voices that well.
fake out from the Gothitelle into that Tyranitar here. No protect from this Sylveon. Moonblast, though, from the Fluttermane into the Tyranitar as well. Does a nice chunk of damage, but again, that special defense boost is absolutely huge thanks to that Sandstream. This Sylveon, though, able to use Yawn this turn into that Fluttermane. Fluttermane is going to have to possibly switch out here, which it can do thanks to that Shadow Tag. It is going to take a little bit of the Sandstorm chip as well.
The Yawn is a really nice play from James. I was expecting Hyper Voice just to get the Throat Spray rolling, so you get the boost to your special attack, so meaning your next Hyper Voice would be even stronger. But by yawning, you're calling Toler's bluff here. If you want to stay in and knock out Tyranitar, it's going to cost you being put to sleep on your Fluttermane and really not being that valuable for potentially the next 2 or 3 turns. And if that is the trade you're willing to make, then James is okay with it.
Yeah, crunch from this Tyranitar into the Fluttermane is not enough to knock out. This Fluttermane went for that Shadow Ball into the Hyper Voice, or sorry, into the Sylveon, whose Hyper Voice is enough to knock out that Fluttermane and do a little bit of chip onto the Gothitelle. Probably enough damage that you're not terribly upset, but God, that Fluttermane was really your big MVP in that last game. It probably doesn't feel as good to lose it early on. Psychic from the Gothitelle into the Sylveon is not enough to get that knockout either, even with this chip damage.
Toler in a tough spot there. You only have 1 Moonblast. You know you're being put to sleep the next turn because of that Yawn. Obviously got knocked out anyway, but in that moment, Toler was kind of just sacrificing the Fluttermane. Let me get enough damage off in this matchup with the Moonblast, and then I can safely switch in the Tyranitar on my side, which is at full HP, so I definitely have a little bit more value to it. But if you don't terrestrialize it, the Throat Spray boosted Hyper Voices can be really effective, you know, somewhat negating the Sandstream boost there. It would essentially be evening it out.
Yeah, I think at that point, right, by getting rid of the super effectiveness, I think it's the trade you need to make, right? Looks like there is going to be a terrestrialization this turn as well. Most likely, like you said, from Toler, this Terra flying for this Tyranitar. Probably one of the more interesting Terra Pokemon that we haven't really gotten the chance to see this weekend. It does do a lot of different things, and having that Assault Vest makes it really bulky, especially in the face of moves from Pokemon like Sylveon. Tyranitar, though, on James's side, a crunch is enough to knock out this Gothitelle, doing a huge amount of damage. Does finally allow for some freedom of movement here as well. Sylveon's Hyper Voice into the Tyranitar, single target, does do a good chunk of damage, but it doesn't even bring it down to half. This Rock Slide into the Sylveon is enough for a knockout, not enough into the Tyranitar on the opposite side, but I think the speeds here are pretty interesting to see.
Yes, James's Tyranitar did attack first on this turn, so we'll see if it's a speed tie the next time around. Toler, if he was able to attack first, then we would have it. But if not, if James is consistently able to move first, you can actually secure it even more by having Iron Bundle. But look at that Iron Bundle, 2 for 2. We have 2 Iron Bundles and 2 Tyranitars in the field.
James's Iron Bundle is going to be faster, though, because it has that Quark Drive ability boosted by that booster energy into its speed. The Iron Bundle on Toler's side is Covert Cloak. It is going to be slower every single time.
Yeah, that's a good point. So you would be able to get your Icy Wind to ensure that your Tyranitar, if you're on James's side, would be able to outspeed and hit that Rock Slides into this now flying type Tyranitar.
Iron Bundle on James's side protects, but the Iron Bundle on Toler Webb's side does go for this. Icy Wind is going to slow down this Tyranitar. It's not enough for that knockout, actually, but being slower means that your Tyranitar is still going to hit as long as it connects this Rock Slide into that Tyranitar, which it really needs to do here, and it does. Getting that last bit of HP down onto the Tyranitar does remove a big threat to your own Iron Bundle.
Unless I'm like misreading the camera, it seemed like James was a little relieved to get Tyranitar knocked out there.
Yeah.
So you have a free switch into your 4th Pokemon. We're down to our last 2 in this matchup here. Can't get any closer. And the answer is Great Tusk. So that's what the Protect was for last turn, to make sure that James's Iron Bundle could not have its speed lowered from an Icy Wind, and now you have the speed advantage where you can try to go for an Icy Wind and then potential close combat into the opposing Iron Bundle.
This is click the super effective button time.
Yes.
This is what it is, right? This is the thing that taunts me when I know that it's not the right choice, but it looks so nice to click it. Right now, James has that opportunity to start clicking moves that are super effective, like this Freeze Dry into the Tyranitar. Easy knockout right there, getting rid of the Terra Pokemon on the opposite side of the field. Toler, at this point too, is down to his last Pokemon in this Iron Bundle, which he may be looking for another freeze here onto this Great Tusk. It's enough actually for the knockout.
He just knocks it out.
He just knocks it out. So now it is Iron Bundle versus Iron Bundle. You know your Iron Bundle is faster if you are James. The Sandstorm has ended. There is no more chip. This is freeze dry freeze moment, Joe. And if you are Toler, you're not getting freezed because of that Covert Cloak.
Yeah, and it looks like the this matchup where sometimes if there's an ice type iron bundle, you can actually win that because you're not weak to the freeze dry anymore. But he was weak there.
Oh, he goes for the icy wind this turn actually to try and slow this iron bundle down. Thanks to that cork drive boosted by that booster energy, it is going to bring it kind of back down to what would be normal. The freeze drive from the iron bundle on Toler website is going first, but he does not get the knockout. And the freeze dry in return here from James is enough to move James on into the top 4. What a absolutely crazy end game.
Toler made incredible plays, absolutely correct. Bring that speed back down to my tier and try to get that 50-50 speed time. But unfortunately for Toler, it was not enough for the knockout, just barely hanging on James's side.
This is almost the same pop-off from NAIC when he won, so you have to imagine this is a huge win for him.
I mean, Toler played incredibly in this match, and it's really unfortunate that he doesn't get to go away with the victory and moving on into top 4, facing off against Wolf here. Just, I feel for Toler so bad because it's so tough when you made the right plays and it still doesn't work out. Like, oh, that was an awesome best of 3.
Those players know their end game. They know what they need to do to win the game. It isn't exactly the most, it doesn't always feel the most consistent, especially when you're relying on something like a freeze or even a critical hit would have gotten that for Toler there. But it's still something. You're right. You're still playing the odds. These players know what they need to do, what their line is to be able to wrap these games up, and it shows how strong and how well matched both of those teams are, showing the power of these Paradox Pokemon in that Gray Tuscan Iron bundle that we hadn't been able to see until today.
Yeah, and I'm just like, I'm trying to play back the last couple turns in my head and like trying to see what difference it could have made, and it really was just a case of both trainers playing exceptionally well. The only thing I'm also wondering, like, if I could ever ask James about it, is seeing his sheet. It is Ghost Terra Iron Bundle, so I maybe that's for Fake Out or something like that, since it doesn't have Covert Cloak. But the other thing I'm thinking of is he still had access to Terrestrializing there, so why would you not Terra Ghost so then Freeze Dry is no longer super effective? Obviously it didn't matter, but if there is another world where Toler crits there and you don't live on 14 HP, I would like wonder why not to Terra there. But obviously James is a world champion and one of the best players in North America, so he knows better than us. I just thought that was like really interesting.